Good morning. I'm Bob Pace, your host for this podcast from Southern California. We're here to talk about CPS and keep our children. Now, CPS stands for Child Protection Agency, and it's a federal government agency that's supposed to protect our children from abuse and neglect and do family reunification, meaning we need to bring the family back together. That's an important aspect. But as most of you see right now, CPS has been a nightmare. And it's been a nightmare for my case for over 14 years. I've talked to over 100 people right now, and I'm sad to say that it seems to be the common situation everywhere I talk to, no matter what state you're in, what location you're in. Everybody is being abused by CPS and not treated fairly. It seems like every case, there's imminent danger for our children, and automatically our children are taken from their mothers and fathers. It's child trafficking that's happening right now, and they're doing it legally. They're exercising their power all for the sole purpose of a $1 billion business. CPS is doing it for the money. He isn't doing it because they're good guys and want to help out the family or help the family get together. People are still being abused. Where is CPS for those cases? Last week, Nickelodeon, the children TV network, things surfaced about the kids being abused, neglected during the showtime. People are coming forth with accusations. Again, where's CPS? There's horrific stories about kids and being in danger and so forth. And I agree that we have to have an agency, but we have to have an agency that works, that cares about the family, that cares about our children, not for the sole purpose of money. And every day, twice a day, 7 days a week, I talk about CPS, what they've done. I have people on my show as guests that talk about their loved ones and how they're so helpless, because it seems like everybody, over 100 some people I've talked to, have the same problem. They're out of money. They are homeless. They have done some mistakes. They're not well educated, let's say, and they've been taken advantage by a Gestapo organization as CPS. They are ruthless. They are liars. There's deception, and they took away our daughter. We had 3 children. We got back 2, but one of them was taken away. And not every moment goes by that I don't think about her. She was told by CPS that she could divorce her parents, which she did. At the CPS's ongoing pushing of it, she also changed her name, which CPS told her to, and sealed her birth certificate. A 12-year-old doesn't know those kinds of things. And I can guarantee that the foster care people and the social workers at CPS did that. It's all for money. The foster care gets money. The foster care that is watching our daughter. Combined income is $250,000. Plus they get all this money, which is way too much. They don't get all the money that CPS gets. But it's been reported over $20,000 per child CPS gets per month. And they get that until the child turns 18. As soon as the case is open, it's all for getting this money. Now, this is a show that's interactive, meaning if you want to talk about your CPS case or ask a question, you can text me right away. You can text me, and all I ask is you put your name and your city and your state. Also, I've had other people from outside of the country contact me. I've had Australia, Canada, United Kingdom, and Ghana. and they all have CPS problems. It seems to be a worldwide affair. Yes, children are abused worldwide. Children are neglected worldwide. But is there anything about family reunification? No, I don't think there is. I've yet to hear a really good, positive, warm story. Last night, I had a woman who sacrificed her life, who has done for 23 years. She had her mother taken away from her, and she was raised in foster care. And then when she attempted to have children, those children were taken from her. She has her boy back who has special needs, and she takes care of him. But her young daughter, who has been taken, all her parent rights were taken over. She never gave them up, but they were taken from her. So her daughter's grown up not knowing or not caring. It's just like our daughter. She's 21 now. She was taken at 12. She doesn't care or want to know or anything like that. In fact, it seems like our relatives, our in-laws, have gotten worse since our case has been over for quite some time. It ended in 2017, but it's 2024, and I'm still sad and still hurting because we can't see our daughter. It isn't a moment goes by. My wife and I, we've had a relationship for 32 years. We've tried our hardest to raise our family right. We're lucky we have 2 boys, and they're still functioning, but a lot of this CPS has affected them. A lot of the CPS has affected them. And they're getting by. Our youngest now is 18, and he's going to be graduating soon from high school. And he's been on a roller coasters, ups and downs and everything. We have struggled so hard to put him through a private school to make sure that he's able to go on to college and better his life. Our whole emphasis for 32 years has been to take care of the family, to make sure that our children have something better than we did as children, as we did growing up. I've been really working hard all my life. I started at 18 out on my own. And it was not by choice. I mean, it was by choice. But my home life was okay, but I felt like it was time for me to move on. So for that period of time, I bought in 4 homes. I've been successful, had great jobs. But unfortunately, my time, I guess, was coming when I turned 60 in 2010. That's when CPS got involved. That was my nightmare. They didn't actually take our children in 2015, but for 5 years, they constantly questioned how we were taking care of our children from allegations from lay people. These were the in-laws. These were my wife's family members who took upon themselves. And one of them, her sister, is a caseworker. And she knew how to get through. And they wanted our children. And I still, to this day, it's like when I first met my wife and we got married, after about 5 years, they wouldn't come to the wedding. Not one family member. And one of them lived in where we lived in California, but not one family member would come to the wedding. It was the hardest thing to experience, not having family members. My mom and dad were there, and we had some other people, some of my friends and so forth. But it was really, really hard. So here we are today. Today being the 25th of March, 2024. And I've been talking about and fighting CPS for 14 years. And it doesn't seem to be getting better. Everybody I've talked to on the show, I really value. You all are very precious people. And you've worked hard, with your children and try to understand it. There's been mothers and sons on the show. There's been fathers and mothers, single parents, both fathers and mothers, all trying to take care of their children, trying to do their best, with very little means. The economy of this world has really, really, really crashed. gas again is on the rise. We have a tendency to have a very corrupt administration, and I think it trickles down to the child protection services. My mouth gets a little dry, so I had a little sip there. Now, I do this show twice a day, 7 days a week. I come on at 10 o'clock in the morning for an hour at Pacific Standard Time, and again at nighttime at 7 o'clock for an hour Pacific Standard Time. And I'd like to invite any of you that like to be on the show to write my producer, who works very hard with the show, to make sure that it's a good show. And you can email her. It's grace@vincentwdavis.com. It's grace@vincentwdavis.com, and she will gladly put you on the show. You can pick a Monday, a Friday, a Saturday, Sunday, whatever, and morning or afternoon. There's 14 shows to pick from per week. And I'd love to have a guest speaker on here because you add a lot to the show. It's also a different flavor than hearing me all the time preach the same thing over and over and over. And I appreciate all my followers and listeners that come on. And I appreciate the emotes, the hearts, the thumbs up. And I know that it's really a struggle out there for you because you're dealing with the agency that is so volatile. Boy, it seems cold this morning. So I hear what you have to say, and I feel for you because you are not going to give up. That is the secret. This secret is never to give up. Keep pursuing, keep doing everything you're asked to do. Try to use short answers, yes and no. Yes and no. Don't try to talk to them. Don't think they're your friends. Be careful when it sounds like they're trying to promise something. They won't keep their promise. They'll trick you into signing papers. They'll trick you into messing around with your visitations and so forth. They'll get your hopes up and then they'll dilute your hopes. They're so bad they'll dilute your hopes. And I don't know if they enjoy that or what, because my social worker was the worst human person I could see. She was young. She got the job with no college degree, no social classes, nothing to know about how to be a social worker or how to be, very little training, and she's entrusted. She didn't have to mentor somebody, and I think they should. I think everybody that goes in this field should mentor for at least 10 years. I think they should go to college, get a college degree in social work, and take classes. Take parenting class, take the classes they're going to ask the parents to do. Try to find out how to help. Not rely so much on a bonus or greed is what the CPS did in my case. The people in Orange County were terrible. They have a building. I met the director because I fought from the top to the bottom. And that is a Taj Mahal of a building. It's like the Emerald City in the Wizard of Oz. It's unnecessary to spend all that money supposed to be spent on children to spend on that. And the director was the most awful person with the gold around his neck. And I thought he was going to fall over. And on top of that, all his assistants, all his cronies, it go in one ear and go out the other ear. I fought, and I tried to for a year and a half without an attorney. And that leads me to my number one rule. But before I say the number one rule, another way you can participate in this podcast is to call in. My office number, which is 626 698 0990. That's 626 698 0990. That rings my phone. So if you want to be on a guest on the show right now, you can call me at that number. And I'll gladly let you talk on the show. You won't be seen, but you can talk on the show. So that is a third way, a third mechanism you can be interactive with this show. Now, as I mentioned, my rule number one is an attorney. And why I emphasize an attorney with CPS is because it's a nightmare. You know, the story of Alice in Wonderland going down the rabbit hole. Well, that's what CPS is. There's so many dead ends and wrong doors. They don't help you. There's no guidance. There's nothing there. They're there to deceive you, to keep your children, to steal your children, to do child trafficking. Child trafficking. That's illegal, but they do it. They also alienate your children from you, and that's against the law. Alienation is against the law. They'll violate your civil constitution and your civil rights and your constitution, I should say. Both your constitutional rights. They'll violate the 14th Amendment, the 4th Amendment, the 2nd Amendment. Those are the three amendments you should look at. They'll violate your civil rights. They are very, very bad about doing that. They don't show warrants when they're supposed to show them. They take your children without your permission. They put them in foster care without your permission. They take away your medical rights and your educational rights to your children. Those are all violations of civil and constitutional rights. Now, something to think about that. Because you can sue CPS. And the lawyer that I'm talking about that could represent you, his name is Vincent W. Davis. He's a professional family law attorney. He knows how to work in dependency court. He knows how to work with juveniles. He has fought CPS and gotten children back. And he is a trial attorney. And he has many, many years of experience working in Southern California, Northern California, and all the states. He will go out of state. He'll go out of state. Right now, you should call in to 888-6582 and ask to speak to Mr. Davis. He's offering a 30-minute consultation for the price of $49.99. That's $50. And you can talk to him about the strategies and of how to fight CPS and how to get your children back. So all you do is you call in 888-6582 and tell them that Bob Pace sent you and that you want to set up a consultation with Mr. Davis. And also when you talk to Mr. Davis, tell him that Bob Pace sent you. It's really important. That is rule number one. And why I say that's so important, here's a story. You have a heart that needs working on. Let's say a valve to replace or something heart. Are you going to get a layman to do heart surgery? Are you going to do it yourself? No, you're going to get a professional doctor, a doctor who's gone through medical school, who has completed an internship, who is mentoring other doctors to become a good doctor. That's who you want to get an attorney. That's who you want to get an attorney. You don't want, you want someone who's a specialist, someone who could take care of you. And I'm telling you that. It's really, really important. And then after you talk to that attorney, consultation, you may want to hire Mr. Davis. But you need an attorney. There's a lot of you can do out there. I recommend you look for 10 attorneys that are family lawyers that have worked with CPS, that have fought CPS. From the list of 10, narrow it down to 5 and talk to them. And from that 5, you pick one based on your financial circumstances and so forth. But Mr. Davis's price is fair. and he will be a good attorney to retain. I did. I got back my 2 sons. So that's rule number 1. Now, rule number 2 is kind of a busy work rule, but you'll find it very valuable. You need to get yourself a notebook, and you need to organize a notebook that you write down the incidents that happened to you from the first time, and you keep track of these incidents. You put the date and the time the incident happened, the people involved, the social workers, the children, the police, the parents, or the relatives. You list them. Then you list what the incident is. What kind of incident was that? Your children were taken. They dropped into your home unannounced. Whatever the incident is, you do that. And then you put the outcome of the incident. And that may take 2 or 3 lines in your notebook. But then you skip a couple lines and write the next incident. Then skip a couple lines, write the next incident. The reason space is you may want to come back and write some notes there. Also, you can look at it back 6 months, a year. Our case, I was 3 years with CPS. There's one gym the other day was 8 years still actively. Another woman has been on there for 23 years. It's sad of the stories, the horrific stories of children taken, children that turn against parents, children that have been coached, and been, to leave their parents. This is so wrong. Studies have shown that the best people to raise children are the parents, the biological parents. And there's a lot of complication partnerships. Some girls out there don't know who the biological father is. Some have children, but a lot of them do not do abortions. And that's a good thing. And, because the children need a life. It's not their fault. There's not their fault they were conceived. They're just a living entity that wants to live. So there are mothers and fathers that want to raise their children. One father I know has pitched a tent in the freezing cold in Alaska to be close to his children. The mother has died, and he wants to protect them and take care of his children so bad that he lives in freezing temperatures inside a tent to take care of his children. There are some parents that sacrifice their social life, their livelihood, to take care of their children. And it's sad to say there's been relationships that have been so torn apart. There's been domestic violence, which is wrong in front of the children. You cannot do physical or verbal domestic violence in front of the children. That's against the law. Your children will be taken from you when you exhibit that. You have to do something called a timeout. You have to do a timeout. And it's one thing I like to say. A lot of you use timeout with your children. I think that's great. But the one thing you may forget when you do a timeout, you need to talk to them after timeout is over. You need to sit there and tell your child and ask them, why do you think you did a timeout? What was it? And you need to explain to them. It's your love and caring, but it's also you try to teach your child something. And children will tell you that. They need to know. A lot of people do timeouts, and then they say, all right, timeout's over, you can go play. Well, the child gets mixed signals there. You need to talk to them if you do a timeout. You need to understand. You need to show love to that child. You need to, encourage your child and respect your child. Eventually, your children will grow up past 18 and be a young adult, and you need to still respect them. They may go off and do a different thing that you don't want to do or you don't believe in there. But you need to have a faith. You need to have a God that you worship to. You need a God. You need that in your life. You need to be able to pray and to love that God and do nice things to people. Be nice to each other. Do the golden rule, which is be nice to others as you would have them be nice to you. That's the golden rule. A lot of people don't know that, but that is the golden rule. And so I'm telling you that. That is the golden rule. Well, it's almost halfway through my show. And I love to hear from somebody that texts in a message. Please put in your name and the city and state you're from. It's the comment section. This is a YouTube video. We're using StreamYard as the application on this YouTube. And you found us through Facebook. That's how you found us. And I'm glad that you're listening. And I hope that you see the light, that you can fight and win against CPS. I said horrific bad things about CPS, but they're true. I'm talking from firsthand. I've talked to about over 100 some people in different parts of the country that have the similar problem, the same things that I go through. There's bad distrust. Now, I should talk about the third rule now. The third rule is you want to say no to social workers. Do not talk to them. Do not allow them in your home. And that goes for the police too. You need to be represented by an attorney. If you have a law problem or a legal problem or a social worker problem, then that is your clue that you need to get an attorney, or tell them that you'll get back to them, but you need to talk to your attorney first. Being represented by an attorney will scare off the social worker. They don't expect people to know that. But, and you may not have one. You may not be able to afford one. And maybe you can get one with giving some advice. And there's a lot of them out there, but there's a lot of bad attorneys. I hate to tell you that. They'll take your money and run. So you got to be careful of who you hire and do a background check, an interview check, and so forth. But I really, if I had to do my whole case all over again, I would have first thing to done is get an attorney and let them deal with it. Same thing with legal problems. You can't really fight all the legal problems. There's things you can do, and you can Google and learn and so forth. But eventually you have to get an attorney that can weed through the spaghetti as CPS is. They're like a spider spinning a web around you. They'll take you in. They'll lie to you. They'll deceive you. There's no transparency. There's no watchdog. There's no board of directors and supervisors watching over them. They're free to do what they want to do. And they are corrupt. I see it in the news all the time. There's social workers in Atlanta, Georgia, sending children to Texas. There are social workers in small towns that don't have foster care. They're sending children out of state. That's wrong. There are social workers that do medical performances on children without the parent knowing, and the parent's medical rights have not been taken away. They're giving drugs to children. They're supposedly, all the social workers are clinical licensed therapists, and they can tell when an adult is bad or a child is bad, and they can prescribe drugs. No, even clinical social workers can't prescribe drugs. Only a doctor can. Okay, only a doctor can. So my rule number 3 is, it's a real tricky area. If you hear a knock on the door, don't open it because you don't know who the person is. You have a phone and you have a mailbox, and if they want to get a hold of you, they can write you. or they can call. And if you have a recorded message and you hear it's from the CPS worker, don't call them back. Get a hold of an attorney and ask the attorney what the procedure is to do. And they will tell you. They will tell you. And at first, you may have to say yes, no answers like yes, no, I will not let you in, or where the case may be. In order for someone to come in your home, they have to have a warrant. They have to have a warrant for you. And a warrant is a lot of things. It can be a warrant for arrest, a warrant for entering your home, a warrant for taking your children. If a warrant's out there for your arrest, it gets you in trouble if you get other troubles of law. For instance, let's say you sign a simple ticket, a speeding ticket, a wrong turn ticket, or it is. And on the ticket, you sign that you promise to appear on such and such to answer the charges. Well, if you don't show up, a warrant would be out there for your arrest. That means a simple stop for some other matter. They will handcuff you, take you in, and impound your car. So you have to be careful with warrants. And you have to be careful when you sign something, promise to sign. And so it's really, really important that you're very, very, very careful. And so the other warrant I'm talking about is a warrant to enter your home. They need a court order warrant signed by a judge that says specifically the date and time they can enter your home and what the allegations are and who they're coming to talk to. That has to be on the warrant. It's got to be a wet signature. It can't be a copycat. A lot of CPS workers will lie. They say, "Oh, we have a warrant." They made me copies of other people warrants. They may have doctored the documents. You need to look at it. You need to look at it. And it goes for policemen too. They have to have a warrant to enter your home. The only time that a social worker or a policeman enter your home is if the child's in immediate imminent danger. Meaning, let's say there's a fighting match between two children, between a parent and a child. They're going to enter the home. If you're fighting with each other, they're going to enter the home. If you're shooting a gun with each other, they'll enter the home. It has to be something dangerous to the children, something that's dangerous to the children. And ask to see it. The same thing goes for taking your children. A lot of CPS workers will come to the hospital when you just delivered your child and take your child. First of all, they're not supposed to be in that hospital room where you had your child. They need to wait in the lobby. That is wrong. A parent needs a bond with their child. They want to take that child before there's any bonding going on. That's why they alienate your children. They want to bond, you have your children bond with the foster care or bond with the other people. It's wrong. It is wrong. Yes, there are bad cases, but if there are bad cases, 98% of the time, those parents don't care. They're incarcerated, they're in prison or whatever. They don't care. And yes, I agree that social workers should intervene and do what they can to help out that child. But when you have a parent that says, "Hey, man, I screwed up. I got depressed and got down on some drugs and I want to be drug free." And that is a workable parent. That's a hiccup, and that can be fixed with CPS. That's part of family reunification. That is part of family reunification. And so I'm telling you that you got to understand, you got to Google some things like I've done here. If you have a complaint about the child welfare service agencies, you can do a complaint. Sorry for all the commotion, but it's a live broadcast from home. I mean, I'm only doing this an hour twice a day, and it's always has it's very important that my hour is definitely with noises. You can do a complaint against them. Every state has a Department of Social Services. Now, child custody and visitation issues. Those are orders that must come from family court, dependency court. If you have a complaint against a social worker about inappropriate actions and request to change assigned social workers shall be directed to the county of child workers, children workers CWS for resolution. That is CWS, Child Welfare Services. You can also do complaints about law enforcement officers, and that is directed to the Complaint Department of Appropriate Law Enforcement Agency, and you can file a complaint. You also complain about judges for misconduct or wrongdoing. They should be made in writing to the Commissioner on Judicial Performance. They have a complaint form, and you just describe the judge's conduit. Now, someone asked me the other day what Nuke Pro Trunk is. NUNCPROTUNC. And it's a procedural that they backdate something, and I guess they are allowed to by law. Now, this Nuke Pro Tunk is a Latin expression, which means now for then. In general, our court ruling, Nuke Pro Tunk, applies retroactive to correct an earlier ruling. So if they make a mistake, they can correct it. Now, the court has the discretion in family law matters to order an entry of judgment which makes the order relate back in time to when it should have been entered. So if they have the wrong date or something like that, they can do that. So there was that question about that. Now, in order to the court to enter your judgment, you should create a declaration explaining to the court what date you want the new take to be effective. As it does not have anything to do with the filing other than establishing the case. The declaration should indicate the earliest date, for example, 6 months and 1 day from the date of service of the respondent, that the court has jurisdiction to enter a termination of marriage order and the state in which the date it was actually effective. That was an example there. But I know that a lot of you have come with that explanation there. Now, so you ask you, what is an ombuds person? A civil rights coordinator. Well, it's a good idea, a good concept, but they're in cahoots with civil service. Supposedly, an ombud person is a neutral party who helps resolve complaints or answer questions about the CPS agency's policies or practice. The ombud person is a liaison between CPS and the public, clients, and other government and private agencies. The ombud person conducts review in independent and impartial manner to ensure that the agency's policies or practices are considered with the CPS goals and missions. The ombudsperson seeks to resolve issues in a fair, thoroughly, and timely manner, ensure that individuals are treated fairly, respectfully, and dignity. Well, so far that has not worked. The people I've heard that have contacted them, they find that they're in cahoots with the social workers, and they'll lie and like everything else. They are supposed to provide information, answer questions, identify staff, conduct independent complaints, assure policies, procedures, ensure individuals are treated fairly, and ensure matters are confidentially, and make recommendations and referrals. They oppose also facilitate prompt complaint resolution. That all sounds good on paper, but so far it has not been working that way. They cannot give legal advice. They cannot overturn court orders. They cannot investigate matters when appeals or lawsuits are pending, and they cannot ensure implementation of any recommendations. Personnel and disciplinary matters are referred to an agency manager. If you want to file a complaint with the ombudsperson, you contact the office by phone or email. You can submit a complaint in writing. Simply download the complaint and complete the end, send it via email or U.S. mail. So I know there have been some people that have talked about that. They've also talked about CASA. And CASA is a court appointed CA service, court appointed service person that is supposed to be making the child, usually every child has a CASA, parents are given a CASA. They're supposed to keep your spirits up. They're supposed to be a support group. But instead they tell CPS everything. So you can't be confidential with them at all. You cannot be. I know this is hard. It's hard for me to talk about because I see every time I talk, every day, every moment, I see mistakes that are made in my case, and I wish I could do the whole thing over. You know, it really is sad. Now, what happens in child welfare cases is I'm finding out that most of your constitutional rights don't apply. The child welfare system rarely offers the same rights as the criminal justice system. And that's where it gets really confusing. You think, why is the child welfare system able to not do the same thing as criminal justice system? And they leave many families facing permanent separation without due process to protection. You know, every year, Child Protection Services across the nation investigates the family lives of roughly 3.5 million children, or about 1 out of every 20 American kids. So for every 20 American kids you see walking out there in school, one of them is being investigated. 1 of every 20 American kids. In these cases, government officials frequently accuse parents of wrongdoing. The word frequently is true. I know that is. They enter the home to conduct searches and interrogatories illegally. And what they can find out, they can use against the parents by the state attorney in court. So that's why you don't allow them in your home and you don't talk to them. And you, as the parents, will be accused, will face punishment, including by having their children removed from them indefinitely. Indefinitely. Now, they do operate like criminal ones. Yet, the most low-income families who are ensnarled in this vast system have few of the rights that protect Americans when it is the police who are investigating them. According to dozens of interviews with constitutional lawyers, defense attorneys, family court judges, and CPS caseworkers, low income is definitely abused because, it does take a lot of money to fight CPS. Did you know that you get more protection when facing a couple months in jail than you do when you're facing losing your kids forever? I mean that, forever. The right to remain silent, the right to a public jury trial, the right to face your accusers, and so on, are not recognized and enforced by the courts and the child welfare system. Do you hear what I just said? The right to remain silent, the right to a public jury trial, the right to face your accuser, and so on are not recognized. So you can have a false allegation by a layperson and they don't have to be said or faced or anything. You do not have the right, and you should. If someone makes an allegation, whether professional person or lay person, it should be done so in writing and signed by your name, date, and time. And it should be signed under the oath that all the facts you say are true to the best of your knowledge. And it's really, really important that that you think about that because, right now, someone gets on the phone, Joe Doe. Hey, I saw the kid family's house with a lot of partying going on, and I know there's children in the house. Well, there may be a wrong thing, but right away they think it's true. The investigators, and they're going to persecute, and you won't be able to face that person. Let's say a neighbor next door is upset with the other neighbor because of their vines growing or the trees growing, and they want to retaliate. Allegations have been used and retaliate. I know that my in-laws were doing that. I know that neighbors would sometimes do that against one another, and that's wrong. If they make it in writing and they sign the name to it, if it turns out it's false, then you should be able to sue them. You should be able to take activity against them. So, it's really sad what's happened now in the child tenancy law. For instance, let's look at some of the bills of rights that review the disparity. The Fourth Amendment example says that citizens must be protected from unreasonable searches and seizures by the government, and that a warrant to conduct searches should be based on probable cause that specific evidence will be found. Yet, Child Protection Service Agency conduct millions of warrantless home searches every year. I'm talking about million they do that. Ruling through rifling through refrigerators and stuff. Hello. Yeah, good morning. Who is this?
This is Danielle. I was just listening to you on the show.
Oh, okay. Danielle, yeah. Hi, Danielle. Go ahead. We still have about 10 minutes left if you want to talk about something, Danielle.
Yeah. Well, something that caught my attention that you were talking about was how they can go by like somebody just calling in and saying false, like something false against us.
Right.
That's what's going on with my whole situation, like with my case.
Yes.
It's all based on like a aunt that has no doing with my son, and she provided feedbacks with false information, and they took it and ran with it, and that's what I'm going through right now, like having to prove all that, and that's how they can just go by what someone says that quick and not even have to investigate it or anything. That's what's crazy.
You're right.
And that's what I'm going through, and that's what they did with because my mom passed away, and with my aunt had no say, or she shouldn't have been involved at all, and they did not even look into the situation at all. Like my aunt told them that I was nowhere to be found. She didn't know where I was, which was a lie, and that she hadn't seen me in 10 years, and they did not. They failed my family. Like they could have prevented foster care and everything.
Yeah, I'm glad to have it, Danielle. I see your messages. I was on the internet looking at things I was talking to you all about, and so my eyes were drifted away from your comments there. But
you're
good. I did see that you did there, and I'd like to welcome you, as well as Dwayne Peacock, who says, I agree, Diane Peacock. And Diane, I don't know what city and state you're in. Danielle, what city and state are you again?
I'm in Ackworth, Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia. All right, Danielle's from Georgia.
Yeah,
she's been on our show before, and she told me about the children taken from Georgia to Texas in the land of news.
Yes.
And that was really good that you shared that information with us there.
Yeah.
So
but like with them going by what my aunt said, that's what happened to my son. And they told me when they finally how they got in touch with me was through a fake profile on Facebook that was supposedly this caseworker with the DFAC down here. That's how I was contacted about my kid.
Wow.
And then they told me there was no placement in Georgia for him. But if they would have done their job about exhausting all reasonable effort, they would have known that I'm right here, and I also have family. Like my mom has brothers and sisters. Like they didn't contact none of my family. So it's crazy. Like,
yeah, I agree with you, because there is a lot of this false allegation going on. It's sometimes neighbors don't get along with each other for whatever reason, okay? And they think by calling CPS they can attack you, because maybe there's something true to what they're saying, or maybe it's enough to have CPS investigate it. And they're doing it solely to revenge, and I think it should be done in writing. If you're making an accusation, it's like if you do a complaint against the police or a social worker, you have to do so in writing.
Right.
You just can't call on the phone and say, my social worker is being biased. You have to put it in writing.
Right.
You have to give details and everything else. If they're doing the same thing too. Now, if there's an ongoing case of child abuse where a child's being beaten up, yes, you call 911. And they know who to contact, and they'll contact the police, who in turn will contact Child Protection Services.
Not out of spite.
Yes.
Don't do it out of spite.
Yeah, they do a lot of out of revenge or spite. It's internal with mothers and families. I've seen where the in-laws are attacking the other side of the family. I mean, in the case of my thing was my in-laws. My in-laws with my wife, family members were attacking us wrongly, and and it's all because it started when I lost my job, and they were sitting there insinuating things, and they wanted to take the children. That was their only motive. They didn't like us at the beginning of us getting married or having a family or children, so they wanted to attack us.
Selfishness and greed. What like that? There's no reason for people to even. I mean, to even be that way, because I know what you're talking. Like, because that's my my own aunt that has my daughter. Is the one that did this to me and my son. So that's how crazy it is. I mean, I don't have just one kid. I have three. And my girls, like, how could you do, I mean, and how could you lie? But it's like, honestly, the way I feel, I am on felony probation, and I'm in good terms with my probation. I've been in good terms. And they have even tried to make it a part of, like, they tried to do it as like a criminal process with, like, when I was in criminal court to get put on probation.
Yeah.
Back in 2011, DFAX has tried to make it seem like that, but the thing with family courts and stuff, there's so much room compared to criminal court. There's so much room for error that they can actually go back and fix and cover up, rather than in criminal court, there's no room for that. That's what I don't understand. There's so much room for error.
There's double standards. There's double standards. I agree with you. There's double standards. Where the amendment works for criminal court, like, you're better off in criminal court than you are in CPS court.
Right, and that's what I was talking to my probation officer about. I'm like, I mean, I'd rather, I'll spread this with everybody, but my probation officers, like, the ones that I've had that have been involved with me during this whole time, they're actually, they're not. They have told DFAX, they're like, that is civil, this is criminal. She's did her, she got in trouble, she did her time. We're not. It's like wanting them to violate me over nothing, like get me in trouble, and that's how. And they had, and it was pretty cool because that meant a lot. How much they stood up for me. They didn't actually. Yeah. And because that's not fair. I mean.
I understand, Daniel. I understand, Daniel. We have another person that has texted Diane Peacock, who's from Florida, says that CPS are the worst. It's all about money. Well, that just tells me, after 100-some people, it's all about money, and that CPS worse in their state. So, whether you're in California or in Georgia or Florida, it's the pits. It's the pits. Even the people that were talking to me from... Go ahead.
Like with my son, that video that the news did, it's like in Georgia, they have to send our kids out of state to get help to bring out-of-state kids in, and it's all about the money. They get more money for bringing out-of-state kids in and using facilities here, and send it that. And my son, with him being out in Texas, and they're okay with it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I enjoy seeing my son. I love talking to him every day, and I do talk to him every day. But it sucks because it's over a video visit.
I know.
And it's not like, and it's crazy how they can push our kids out of the state. Why can't they provide services here?
Well, they have the money. They're just greedy. They're greedy. The thing is about this money thing, it's just terrible. I mean, I more and more investigate, the more and more I find out. I mean, $20,000 is way too much money to raise a child. I mean, I don't know what kind of living you want to give that child at $20,000 a month, but an average doesn't cost that much. I know.
But they don't ever go to the kid.
Yeah,
like, that's what's crazy. Like my son, I'm like, I see him, and they're like, oh well, he's fine. I had to raise Cain just to get my son a haircut out there in Texas.
Yeah.
And he would be I'd be on a video visit like we talked, and he'd be these other, I don't even know if it would attack him, and on a video visit.
Right.
I'm like, what am
I don't mean to cut you short, Daniel. We should called in earlier, but I got to close my show down.
I popped in at the
And I know that you did. I'm glad you did. And Diane Peacock, I'm glad you called in or text in. Please call in the next time at 626-698-0990. If you want to be on the show, you can email Grace at vincentwdavis.com. And if you want an attorney,
what time do you get on in the morning?
I get on at 10 o'clock Pacific. In the evening, it's 7 o'clock at night.
Okay.
10 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock at night. So I want to thank y'all. I don't want you don't give up on your kids. Keep trying. And God bless you all. And I will see you later tonight. This is Bob Pace signing off.